Lebanon's Hezbollah terror group revealed that it's launching a new phase in its war against Israel. In a statement, Hezbollah says precision-guided missiles, quote, are being used for the first time to target Israeli troops. I do want to bring in Robert Murrett, a professor of practice at Syracuse University's Institute for Security Policy and Law, also a retired admiral for the U.S. Navy. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us and help break it all down.
Glad to be back with you, Josh.
And my first question for you, as Hezbollah says that it's launching this new phase of the war, do we really know what that means overall?
They've said, Josh, it looks as though they're going to be using some more tactical weapons against Israeli ground troops in southern Lebanon. I don't know if it looks at this point like that's significant, a new phase of the operation. I think it's probably just a continuation and slight escalation, very slight escalation, the kind of tactics that the Hezbollah has been using in their conflict with the Israeli army in southern Lebanon.
Does it seem as though the attacks by Hezbollah on Israel have continued to escalate? Because we saw them really escalate over a period of time. Does that still appear to be the case overall?
I think it's been pretty consistent for some time now, and what they have done is hold at risk a large part of the Israeli population that lived in northern Israel. And since the commencement of ground operations into Lebanon by the Israeli army over the last couple of weeks, it has ramped up a little bit. Hezbollah has a lot of options that they can execute there, to include launching missiles into Israel proper in addition to the ground combat operations they've got. I think it's a gradual escalation, but I don't see this as a major leap or a major shift from what's been happening over the last couple of weeks.
And I did want to ask, because the focus over there in the north has been on Hezbollah, and we're hearing a lot about Hezbollah over the past several months. So does it seem as though that is more the priority right now for Israel, or are we just not hearing about the operations going on with Hamas, aside, of course, from the death of Sinwar?
Say it is the focus of the Israeli military operations. When you look at the strikes that they've been conducting in southern Lebanon, certainly ground operations, and just to step back a little bit, Josh, as you know, Hezbollah is several orders of magnitude larger capability beyond what Hamas had even before October 7th of last year. I mean, just the arsenal they've got, all the weapons they have to strike ground targets in Israel and so forth, and just the sheer numbers of fighters that they have in Hezbollah is 4 or 5x what Hamas has ever had. So it's like I said, a different order of magnitude, and one that could play out for a much longer period of time.
Is there a threat overall of Hezbollah overwhelming Israel's aerial defense system? That is something that a lot of people have asked. So I do want to get your take overall on that.
I would say not. We've had two major combined strikes against Israel, a big one in April and another one more recently, just some weeks ago. And in both those instances, Israel, with a lot of help from coalition partners like the United States, the United Kingdom, the Jordanians, and others, were able to almost completely to defend themselves against the incoming missiles from a variety of different locations, including as far away as the Houthis down in Yemen. So I think that Israel, with help from a lot of their friends, is able to defend themselves from incoming missile attacks. I see Hezbollah as part of that, but probably not nearly as significant as the direct attacks we had from Iran on the two occasions that I just mentioned previously.
Does Sinwar's death really have any sort of impact on Hezbollah? Do they care overall? I know, of course, that they are proxies of Iran, but do they care?
Now, the only asterisk I might put on that is that so much of the Hezbollah leadership, as well as the Hamas leadership, has been decapitated by a series of Israeli actions that, some number of the people that someone like Sinwar was accustomed to dealing with in terms of the Hezbollah leadership aren't around anymore. So I think Hezbollah and Hamas are both reeling now because of leadership succession, which they have to carry out. Both of them have lost many of their key leaders, as well as other elements throughout the region. And I don't think it's going to have that much of a direct impact just based on everything that Hezbollah's got on their plate right now.
We know the U.S. is sending over that missile defense system and the troops who are there to operate it. Is that likely concerning for Hezbollah to know that not only is that system here, but also U.S. troops on the ground?
Question. The THAAD missile defense system, I think, is just one that will complement the existing capabilities that we have throughout the region, which is a really complex air defense picture, which includes land-based aircraft and various parts of the CENTCOM area of responsibility, as we call it, and so forth. I view that as just filling another niche. It would emphasize that it is a purely defensive system, and the only thing that THAAD does very capably is look after primarily ballistic missile threats. I think as a system, it's probably more capable or more appropriate to deal with incoming ballistic missiles fired all the way from Iran than it is some of the less capable systems that Hezbollah has, but it could be used against them as well.
If the war in Gaza is to end now that Sinwar is dead, and it sounds like Netanyahu has said that's not going to happen until the hostages are released and everyone in Hamas does surrender, if the war were to end, would that mean the attacks by Hezbollah on Israel end along with it?
Not necessarily. I mean, it'd be, the Secretary Blinken has been in touch with people in the area, and I know he's planning another trip over there, one of several that he's made in the last year, as you know. But I don't know there's necessarily a connection there. What the hope is that we can reduce tensions throughout the region, a ceasefire and a release of hostages, and a cessation of hostilities, not just down in Gaza, but also hopefully it can be extended into Lebanon with the fighting with Hezbollah. If we could get a deal like that, I think we'd sign up for it in a heartbeat. And I think it's certainly in the United States' interest to have a ceasefire on all fronts and certainly a release of the hostages and also a moderating of tensions. And one final comment I would make on this, Josh, the Iranians. Iran is behind certainly supplying and acting as the force behind a lot of this. They're calibrating their own efforts now because of some domestic challenges they have themselves, and hopefully they'll be in a position to back off a little bit and support a ceasefire and a lessening of tensions and just a pure lessening of fighting throughout the region.
Robert Murrett, a retired admiral for the U.S. Navy, professor of practice there at Syracuse University. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. Is there anything else you want to add about any of this before I let you go?
One comment I make, Josh, is that we have, depending upon how you want to expand the circle, somewhere between 40,000 and 50,000 United States troops in the region. If you include the Eastern Mediterranean, the afloat forces and so forth, it's pretty close to 50,000. And we have to, mention that from time to time. The reason they're there is to try to reduce tensions in the region and to respond to anything that does brew up, which we hope does not happen. But I just want to put a shout out to the 50,000 or so airmen, the ground forces, and naval forces in the region, and the service that they're doing, looking after our allies over there, which are absolutely essential, and also trying to advance security in the region for the global purposes that it supports.
All right. Thank you again for helping to break it all down. We appreciate it.
Good to see you, Josh. Have a great day.
You too.